Hi, and welcome to another episode of Punk Rock Politics with John Smith. Please subscribe to the channel and make sure you get updates of future videos so you can stay informed, know what's going on, know what's important to you. This video talks about the ways in which Trump is trying to steal. Ahead of time, he's working to disenfranchise millions upon millions of voters. This is an unbelievable story. It's not being covered in the mainstream corporate media, and it should be. And hopefully we can help it gain traction, so it is. And in fact, Lee Camp, the host of Redacted Tonight, and all his writers and everybody and researchers do a great job of covering this story and how the workers' strikes in the U.S. have not been covered, a topic that I wanted to do a video for on May Day but wasn't able to, and I'm so happy I get to discuss this. So we're going to show this video from Redacted Tonight, and then after that I'm going to provide some insight, some additional clarity, some analysis, and what it all means. So stay tuned for more from Punk Rock Politics, and let's check out this video from Redacted Tonight.
Welcome to Redacted Tonight. This is a comedy show where Americans in America covering American news are called foreign agents. Donald Trump will probably win re-election. And I take no pride in saying that. I am not excited to see another 4 years from the most corrupt, incompetent, megalomaniacal man-child this country has ever seen. And no, the reason he'll win is not just because Joe Biden happens to be the most pathetic candidate the Democratic Party has ever put up since Hillary Clinton way back in... Was that only 4 years ago? Dear God! Seems like 900. Is life slowing down, speeding up? Are we in purgatory? Is this purgatory? Sorry, this isn't even in the script. I'm just having a breakdown. No, Donald Trump will likely win re-election because nearly 17 million Americans have been purged from voter rolls over the past 4 years. And your corporate media doesn't have the balls or the vaginas or the hermaphroditic mystery parts to talk about it. Investigative reporter Greg Palast, the man who discovered how Bush stole the presidency in 2000, the guy who discovered how the Deepwater Horizon oil spill actually happened, the guy who revealed how California was stolen from Bernie Sanders by forcing provisional ballots on everyone, and the guy who discovered where I left my underwear that crazy night in Vegas. That guy has uncovered yet another way our sham democracy has been rigged. And he reveals it in his new book, How Trump Stole 2020. Between 2014 and 2016, the number of voters purged for moving their residence had soared to 16,696,470. 1 in 12 registered Americans. Over 16.5 million Americans. And guess what? Most of them didn't actually move. And almost all of them didn't actually move out of their state, meaning almost all of them, 16.7 million people, should be able to vote, but won't be allowed to when they show up to the polling place in November. To give you an idea of just how much 16.7 million purged voters could matter in this year's election, Trump won the state of Michigan against Hillary Clinton in 2016 by 10,704 votes. That's 0.065% of the number of people purged across the nation for moving residences when they didn't really move. And please, please, please keep in mind, I am not saying anything wonderful about Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden. That's not the point. I just want a legit election. So I will call out all election meddling. I'll call out fraud, suppression, all of it. Whether it comes from the GOP, the DNC, the CIA, Run DMC, I don't give a fuck. I just want an actual election. Please. 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 I just don't know why you won't let us have an election. I just want... Well, that's not true. I actually do know it's because you're corrupt sociopaths who don't want to give up control, but still, please. I mean, 16.7 million? That's too many. That's really too many. It's too many. Actually, it's a lot more than 16.7 million. because that's just the people who were purged for supposedly changing residences when they didn't. That's not even counting the people purged by way of interstate cross-check, which I've covered before on the show, or purged by way of closed polling places, or thrown out mail-in votes, etc. Yes, even though some people right now are pushing for a complete mail-in election this coming November due to the pandemic, Greg Palast reports mail-in ballots are a nightmare. 22% are thrown out. Moved to 80% mail-in voting, and 25 million people would lose their votes. The powers that be can throw out mail-in ballots for anything. It doesn't matter. It could be that the signature doesn't quite match, or it could be that the person had a stray mark or a rogue booger on the page, or maybe they just barely, hardly at all, wiped their ass a little bit with the ballot. Just a little. When it's Donald Trump versus Joe Biden, can you blame them? Can you blame them? Just a little bit, sure. Of course you wipe your ass a little bit with the ballot. When you're alone in that booth with the curtain closed, why would you not? Why would you not? Here's another example from Palast's new book. Korean Americans were asked to sign their mail-in ballots like everyone else. Thousands of them signed their name in Korean, their native language. All of those were thrown out, every last one. Because you know what? Fuck people from other countries, am I right? With their languages and stuff. If they wanted to be treated like human beings, then maybe they shouldn't have migrated to the land of opportunity, morons. We didn't promise equality, we promised opportunity. They have the opportunity to be oppressed, to be maligned, to be discriminated against. The opportunity to have my only racist, stereotypical portrayals in movies and television. All kinds of opportunities. They've got opportunities out the wazoo and wazoo up the yin-yang, with yin-yang out the hoo-ha. So once you know that so many Americans, mostly minorities and young people, will be disenfranchised, you have to ask, where in the fuck is the Democratic Party? Why aren't they acting like their panties are in a bunch, their hair's on fire, and their balls are in a vice grip? Why not? Well, as with everything involving the Democrats, it's a beautiful combination, a creme brulee of incompetence and corruption. It's a crime brulee. Some of the voter suppression that they don't know about, they then find out and they think, let's not make it a big issue. Because if we do, people will start asking about the primary elections too, and we totally rigged those against Bernie Sanders. Oh man, did we fuck him over? Wow. So let's not discuss the kicking of voters off the rolls and the such. It's a real can of worms. So instead, they and the liberal-aligned media never talk about the millions of Americans purged from the rolls. Million. It's insane. 1 out of 12 voters. It's insane. It's ridiculous. It's pathetic. We all have a right to participate in this democracy. We have a right to that ballot, and we have a right to wipe our ass with it. Coming from Washington, D.C., the belly of the beast is redacted tonight.
Let's roll, never get in control. They got their money, but we got our soul. Let's roll, never get in control. They got their money, but we got our soul.
Welcome, I'm Lee Camp. Now let's take the news from behind. Over the past 2 months, we've learned a lot of things about the U.S. healthcare system. One of them is that cities and states could not and still cannot get the supplies they need. They've needed ventilators, tests, protective gear. It got to the point nurses in New York City were wearing slices of pizza across their faces.
Such
and knowing New
good
York,
joke.
probably using dead rats for gloves. Governor Andrew Cuomo has done day after day of press conferences, often begging for help and more equipment, so much so that he's clearly started to lose it a little.
Let's start with some indisputable facts today. Today is Saturday. That is a fact. Indisputable. I'm Somebody probably could dispute it, but I will stand by that factual determination.
Thank God we had him there to tell us the day of the week. I hope he also clarifies which hole to pee out of, because things are getting pretty critical on this side of the desk. Help me, Andy! Andy! I need to know which hole! Something neither Andrew Cuomo nor pretty much any other U.S. governor or congressperson or Trump administration officials have realized is that unfettered capitalism and the corporate capture of our government is responsible for these shortages. Cuomo started to get it. The other day he started to. He was on the cusp of figuring out why we can't get enough coronavirus tests in America. Watch this clip and watch his little brain just, it's churning so hard.
There are about 30 private companies, large private companies in the country that are even international. 30 large companies make equipment to test. And they all have their own test, okay? So you have the Acme test, the this test, the this test, the this test. Those 30 companies have been selling their machines to local laboratories. And that's their business. They make a machine, Roche makes a machine, they then sell it to people, you have to buy their machine, and they then sell these local labs their testing protocol, because their test works on their machine. So you buy the Roche machine, you then have to buy the Roche test from the Roche Corporation. You buy the Acme machine, you then have to buy the Acme test from the Acme Corporation. Then every time the lab goes to run that test, if I'm running the Acme test, I have to have the Acme equipment and the Acme vial and the Acme swab and the Acme reagents.
So even if a hospital gets access or is gifted extra tests or extra test reading machines, unless they have the right kind that work with the right kind of machine, they can't actually test people. It's useless. Why would these corporations all use different tests and different swabs and different machines and different reagents rather than working together? Rather than going, you have a swab? Well, fuckity-doo-dah! I have a swab reading machine. Wow, why don't we work together? Why is that? Well, I'll explain it to you with an object. Here it is, an Apple charger, the most hated object in the known world. Why is it this thing doesn't work with any other computer? The iPhone chargers don't work with any other phones. The chargers change every 2 years, so that we have to sit there trying to stick a square peg in a round hole, looking like a monkey trying to win a grape. Because Apple wants as much profit as possible. And making sure you buy their charger and you buy a new one every 2 years, that makes them money. Just like Acme making sure you buy the Acme COVID-19 test to go with your Acme machines makes them money. They are literally putting profit over lives. People die because Acme doesn't want their test to work with a different machine. And Andrew Cuomo got so close to realizing the market economy was the problem, but then he couldn't quite get there, because admitting it would be like denying our own religion. Anyway, putting profit above our lives is also one of the many reasons workers are striking around the country and around the world right now. They're striking for better pay, for better protective gear, for better treatment. Amazon workers want to be able to poop more than once a week. Those bougie ingrates. As The Intercept reported, some of the most radical and righteous acts of mass resistance this country has seen in decades, from a wave of labor strikes to an explosion of mutual aid networks, are earning but a fraction of the media focus accorded to fringe right-wing protesters. Yep, MSNBC will tell you more than enough about some assholes who want to drink bleach to prove they're free. They'll tell you that all day long. They'll tell you more about that than they'll tell you about millions of abused Americans who are refusing to pay their rent. The slogan of the rent strike campaign says it all. Can't pay, won't pay. I'm sure for many of you this is very convenient. Last week you thought you were just an unemployed person who got screwed by a pandemic. But now, you're an activist. Of course, to be part of the rent strike, you have to do something that's less fun than just yelling, "Suck my ass!" out your window. I wake up every morning. You have to coordinate and organize. You should call up or email organizations that are involved in the rent strike and make sure you understand how it works. I know talking to people on the phone is annoying because you have to put on your Pop-Tart and put on your pants. And I mean, I guess you don't have to put on your pants, but you probably should because you'll behave more professionally on the call if you have the pants on. By the way, that's some quality comedy right there. Things were getting a little too serious, so we're like, throw a dog in there wearing shorts! For God's sakes! We don't have time, man! Throw a dog! With a moo-moo on a couch. We're gonna get an Emmy for that. Anyway, Americans are not the only ones suffering right now. The head of the UN's Food Relief Agency has warned the world is facing widespread famine of biblical proportions because of the pandemic. They believe hundreds of millions could starve if we don't act now. But here in America, we don't have time to worry about such trivial matters. No. As countless media outlets have made clear, the real problem is how to cut our own hair at home. If we aren't careful, we could end up looking like the 1980s, and it wasn't good for anyone. No. Luckily, USA Today is showing you the answer. Just become a neo-Nazi. Yeah. Neo-Nazis really haven't figured out. When you don't have to worry about all that hair, you have more time for racism and hatred. The world really opens up. Oh, look at him. He's got a windbreaker with his favorite team on it. That's adorable. That's just adorable. Anyway, if you have time after the haircut, you should also think about this. More than 30 countries in the developing world could experience widespread famine. 30 countries, millions of people. It's horrifying. If only we had some money to help them. You know, the UN estimates it would take roughly $30 billion to end world hunger for the year. End it. Where could we get $30 billion? Well, that Guardian article says, at the top of the same article says in small print, that the department that wrote the article is supported by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Huh. I wonder if this Bill Gates fella if he has any cash on hand. Because if he did, he might be able to help out with this famine problem. Oh, he now has a net worth of over $100 billion. So the man himself could personally end world hunger. But no, instead, why don't each of us, you and me, send starving people a baggie of homemade cookies? Do the hearty ones with the walnuts in them. That should stem the tide of a biblical famine. And I think the term biblical famine is a bit misleading, too. Back in times when that book was written, there were like 29 people. If it was a good harvest and all the people having sex weren't turned into pillars of salt, then you might have 35 people. So a biblical famine is nothing compared to what our current world is facing. Silly book. So, is there somewhere where we could maybe, if we can't find the money, maybe just find the food? Maybe the food's just lying around. I'm just spitballing here. Well, what about the millions of tons of fruits and veggies we throw out because they aren't attractive enough? Yes, ugly or wonky veg were blamed for up to 40% of wasted fruit and vegetables, as produce was discarded for failing to meet retailer appearance standards. While people starve, we're throwing out unsightly vegetables. Yet we don't dispose of hideous politicians? Let's get rid of those! Elliot Abrams is still in charge of our anti-Venezuela policy. I mean, for fuck's sake, dude looks like Gargamel got beaten with a frying pan after having a giant penis surgically grafted on his head. Throw him out. He's less attractive than this potato. And the potato would come up with way better foreign policy. Are you kidding me? I vote Potato 2020. We have to go to a short break, but if you want more free content, check out my weekly podcast called Common Censored. It's free every week on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Also, grab the free RT America app, Portable TV at portable.tv/download. I'll be right back with a lot more. Welcome back. I'm still Lee Camp. We've seen how the shock doctrine has been used in the United States during this pandemic.
You know what? I'm going to pause it real quick here and just say, wow. So between, 2014 and 2016, they're saying, he's saying with evidence, this Greg Palast, the great investigative journalist who I've cited in college papers and stuff, he's incredible. You should check out all of his work. Greg Palast exposed the tune of 16 million American votes didn't count between 2014 and 2016 because they were claimed that those people moved, and those people did not move and were supposed to be eligible to vote, but when they showed up to vote, they weren't eligible. 16 million people. And he said, to put it in perspective, Donald Trump beat Hillary Clinton by 10,400 votes. In whatever, I forget what state, to be honest, I'm sorry, Michigan or whatever. And so 16 million people weren't allowed to vote. Now forget if you like that Hillary or Donald Trump, like it doesn't matter. We're supposed to have democracy, and whoever we do like, we should be able to pick. And he was talking about how Greg Palast exposed in California when they were all 2 million people were given provisional ballots in California. I've known about this for quite some time. I believe he's talking about the 2016 election. Then he talks about how rigged this election is, and that's why the corporate media that represents the Democratic Party's propaganda and the Democratic Party, through either incompetence or ignorance, he doesn't say ignorance, but I am, they don't know about it, but mostly incompetence or corruption. So it's they don't, and then when they find out, why don't we talk about how Donald Trump stole all these votes, and why don't we talk, but then we stole the primary in 2016 and we stole it in 2020. So it's a great point. This show just is delivering. It's very serious about how many people face, possibly hundreds of millions of people around the world are going to starve during the coronavirus pandemic, because you already had the climate crisis, which is making things worse. It's harder to grow crops. It takes up more resources. If it's hotter, it evaporates water more, so you need more water. The soil's polluted, and the list goes on. And America throws away, I've known this. I don't know if I've ever talked about it on the show yet, but America throws away enough food. Actually, okay, here we go. Here's a fact that's different than what he was saying, but it's building on it. America throws away enough food, okay, every day to feed the world, the entire world, over 7 billion people, on a 2,400 calorie diet, which would make most people overweight. That's how much food we throw away every day. And people are going to die, and people have been dying. And this is well known. Companies throw away, he's talking about, they throw away ugly food, vegetables, fruit, etc., because it looks bad, but it's still good and it's edible. We don't give that away. But there's a reason for that. The more you throw it away and waste, the higher your profit margin gets, because it makes it more expensive to buy peppers if you throw away 40% of the ugly ones, like Lee Camp is talking about. So this is a great thing. We need to seriously change all of our policies, and capitalism is an epic dumpster fire, as he says. And it's funny how he shows Andrew Cuomo is starting to realize how messed up it is that only private companies have these machines we need to test for coronavirus. And if you buy their machine, you also have to buy their test kits, because that's the only one that works. Instead of working together, they only care about profit. And this is causing the death of people. It costs more money to buy the machines than if the government provided them, and is exposing the joke that is capitalism, and that it leads to death and destruction and fake democracy, or representative democracy, which isn't even full democracy, which is what we need.
To ram through terrible policies. But it's not just American plutocrats using that old trick from their old trick book. For more, we go to our very own intelligence failure, Anders Lee. TV at portable.tv/download. I'll be right.
So I just rewound that. I know you saw it. Bear with me. It's just because there was a glitch, and I want to make sure the words match up on the screen.
About a lot more.
Here we go.
Welcome back. I'm still Lee Camp. We've seen how the shock doctrine has been used in the United States during this pandemic to ram through terrible policies. But it's not just American plutocrats using that old trick from their old trick book. For more, we go to our very own intelligence failure, Anders Lee.
Here in Israel, so far the coronavirus has taken over 200 Israeli lives and revived one, the political career of the brilliant and courageous Benjamin Netanyahu. Mere months ago, Prime Minister Netanyahu was facing jail time for so-called corruption, as it's described by Israel's totally biased anti-corruption community. But since then, his trial has been postponed, thanks to a decision to freeze the courts by a justice minister who just so happens to have been appointed by Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, while he'll still have to face the charges eventually, no one is talking about it. Instead, the focus is on Bibi Netanyahu's masterful handling of the pandemic. As the Prime Minister proudly proclaimed on Facebook, Israel leads the world in testing for the virus. Predictably, the haters chimed in to point out that those statistics were isolated to 1 week, and therefore his post only applies to a specific snapshot in time. If one includes previous weeks in the calculation, Israel lags behind countries like Australia, Norway, and Iceland in the number of tests. Okay, but maybe Israel got all their testing done that week. It's like getting your homework done ahead of time so you can play outside. Plus, they're only testing the people who really matter. On April 14th, Israeli police made sure none of the tests were being wasted on Palestinians by raiding and shutting down a clinic in the Silwan section of East Jerusalem. The clinic was set up by neighborhood activists, but there may have been some collaboration with the Palestinian Authority. So Israel shut it down in order to prevent any governmental activity by the PA in occupied East Jerusalem.
Oh, man.
Preventing people from getting the care they need because of their nationality may seem a bit harsh during a deadly pandemic. But the good news is, a lot of those people are about to become Israelis too, whether they want to or not. Since COVID broke out, Israel has formed an emergency coalition government, headed by Benjamin Netanyahu and the better-looking actor he chose to play him in a movie, Benny Gantz. This week, they committed to annexing large parts of the West Bank. While Bibi's best buddy, Donald Trump, has given this move a thumbs up, the UN, the European Union, and the Palestinians themselves aren't quite as enthusiastic about the land grab, which would be, legally speaking, totally illegal under international law. But that's just legally speaking. Illegally speaking, it's completely awesome, dude. And in the homeland itself, only a third of Israelis actually support unilateral annexation. But any public opposition to the policy is likely to be curtailed by fears over the coronavirus and the resultant lockdown restrictions. That's right, the government knew people were bound to protest a decision like this, so they waited to make it at a time when they were less likely to go out and endanger their health and safety. Even before the coronavirus, protests in that part of the world were known for their hazardous conditions. The weather gets crazy over there. The air is dry, there's bullet like hail, and this fog that feels like tear gas. Despite Israel's careful consideration of present and future citizens alike, residents of the Gaza Strip worry that they're unprepared for the pandemic worsening. Gaza has serious shortages in ventilators and PPE. Gazans complain that Israel has defined some medical equipment and supplies as dual use, meaning that they could also have a military purpose, highly restricting or outright banning their import to Gaza. It has also prevented the entry of spare parts needed to keep medical equipment operational. That may sound cruel and vindictive, but Israel has to make sure this equipment isn't being used militarily. The Gazans could easily start firing syringes out of rocket launchers or make a legion of extra-long catheters that shoot over the barrier wall. Or they could start using protective masks to shield themselves from Israeli tear gas. And if Palestinians weren't being tear gassed, what would Israeli soldiers do all day? They'd be bored out of their mind. Like any good politician, Netanyahu sees the COVID crisis as an opportunity to push through policies that normally wouldn't be accepted. Because of his power grabs, large sections of what was supposed to become a Palestinian state will likely be under his control this summer, which some people might call stealing, but I prefer to call collecting as a gift, while against the law. Reporting from the nation formerly known as Palestine, I'm Anders Lee with Redacted Tonight.
Thank you, Anders. Now joining me for the stories we didn't have time to get to, except now we'll get to them, which means we did have time to get to them after all, is Naomi Caravani. Naomi, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, what you got today?
So, as you know, Lee, small businesses are suffering, but the government has tried to bail them out with more than $600 billion in loans. But big companies like Shake Shack, Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, they got these loans.
Tiny little mom and pop shops.
Yeah. When they were intended for companies with less than 500 employees. So I guess if you didn't like chain restaurants before, now you're just going to be happy if you have an Olive Garden near you. You're going to be like, wow.
Struggling.
This buffalo chicken pot pie Alfredo is so authentic. How do I recreate this at home?
Yeah. Thank God Olive Garden pulled through.
Yeah.
I saw the Lakers got money. They gave it back, but they got some. Yeah, tiny little Lakers. That's the smallest of the teams, really.
Yeah. They are going, a lot of these companies are pressured to give the money back because they have, the loans were intended for companies that don't have access to capital and investments. So, but for example, there are companies that have some serious accounting issues, like MeMedx, which makes and sells human tissue grafts. They paid $6.5 million to resolve a DOJ investigation, and 2 weeks later, they received a $10 million federally backed loan.
The government giveth and the government taketh away, right?
Yeah. But yeah, so my question for you is, like, now would it be a good time to get into white collar crime? It seems like it pays off right now.
In America, I think it is. It's a growing business.
Yeah.
It definitely is.
I want to get in the skin game.
Also, yeah, I know. Grafting skin, if there's one business that you kind of want to be on the up and up, it's probably the skin grafting market. You don't want to buy that in a black alley.
Yeah, I love how they're,
black market back alley, not a black alley.
They're selling pounds of flesh, but they also are asking for the pounds of flesh back. They're like, they should just call themselves Shylock. Anyways, there's also other companies that have been spending lavishly and get rewarded by this loan program. AutoWeb disclosed last week that it paid its chief executive $1.7 million in 2019, a week after it received $1.4 million from the same loan program.
Wow. So there really is no oversight, is what we're gathering here.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, the ones that have given the money back are the ones where, like, Twitter noticed.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Twitter is our oversight now.
Yeah, the Lakers, that was a high-profile thing.
Yeah.
Like, nobody knows what MeMedx is.
Well,
They're
right.
now you do. But it does seem like some people are just making choices. Like, what is the executive going to do without all his money? Like, he has maintenance costs. He has an ice rink at home. he needs to pay the Zamboni guy, or else what will happen?
I mean, he's got to pay for the Olympic-sized swimming pool and the beautiful people he hires to swim back and forth in the Olympic-sized swimming pool. It's a lot
I
of
would
costs.
get an ice rink if I were a billionaire, but to each billionaire his
I
own.
I get a ice luge, I think.
Slides. Yeah, cool. But also asking for help among big businesses are health insurance companies. Though health insurance companies, unlike a lot of businesses, are poised to profit from COVID-19. Health insurers are saying to investors, oh, we're going to make money. But then to lawmakers, they're saying, please, can you help? Can you help us? We're struggling right now. Like Cigna CEO and other top executives explained that although they were seeing higher medical claims for treating coronavirus, those costs were going to be offset by hospitals canceling elective procedures. So those procedures that aren't necessarily emergencies or necessary in a certain time period.
It's almost like deciding healthcare based on profit is a bad idea.
Yeah.
If I had to, I'm just spitballing.
It is like the perfect storm to make Medicare for all look like the least ridiculous thing right now. But now health executives are taking advantage of the fact that people are all getting kicked off their employer-based health plan. So they're saying, oh, we're going to lose money because people are getting fired. So what the government should do is pay the premiums.
I mean, it's a completely rigged system, and luckily the DNC, or the Democratic Party, successfully purged the only candidate who was really talking about Medicare for all.
Yeah,
So-
it is quite sad. Please don't bring that up, or I will cry. I've just been watching videos of him speak for the past week and crying. So let's not go there.
You like to dive into the misery? You
Yeah.
started playing after he dropped out. You're
They
like,
show up
"Let's-
online,
let's
you know.
watch some
I
Bernie
try
Sanders."
to avoid it,
Uh-huh.
but they show up online, and I can't stop crying.
What else you got?
Anyway, so we do see that some, quote unquote frontline workers like at Amazon and Target, Instacart have been striking and demanding better protection or hazard pay or pay time off if they happen to get COVID. And now it looks like the companies are giving into some demands. They're paying a little bit more, but they're also resisting some of these strikes. And it turns out that workers at Amazon are kind of being surveilled by the company. And
Kinda. Don't they have like electric shock collars on them? Like, they're
yeah,
definitely
those are the
surveilled.
robots. The robots watching them, but they have this listserv within the company that they usually use to support each other. The employees will use it to support each other, but now they're saying that you can't be sending these mass emails because people are using these message boards and listservs to criticize the company and to organize. So now they're saying, oh, we have this rule where all communications have to be vetted by a manager, when these rules weren't being enforced before.
This also fits with why we've seen such suppression on social media, is because it turns out that when the working class of America gets to talk to each other, all of a sudden they want a better life. They want things to work better for workers.
But I think, they will find a way. There's other means of communicating, so I don't think the listservs are gonna stop anything. It's like they're just trying to hold back this wave of resistance and worker uprisings that
The other ways of communicating will be like blink if we're organizing, that kind of thing. Naomi, thank you so much.
thank you.
And here are your headlines from the future. In July, you'll read, U.S. moves to give every citizen personal cardboard voting box they can cast votes in whenever they like. A step towards real democracy. In 3 days, you'll learn. On first day, Denny's back open. Man says dry, shitty pancakes taste dangerous, exciting. And in November, you'll learn. Ugly potato wins Senate seat. All right, we're getting there. That's our show, but I've been doing a lot of web-exclusive videos over at youtube.com/Redacted Tonight. Also, my new book is at leecampbook.com. You could grab the digital version right now. Until next time, good night, and keep fighting.
This is terrible.
Ugh. I want to see fucking Chuck Todd's face. So, keep fighting indeed. Keep fighting indeed. So, there's so much to go over. I'm going to go over it real quick. So, they talked about how the worker strikes, are being covered, even though this is like the biggest workers movement of the last 40 years in the United States of America, is being covered less than these right-wing lunatic protests, whether they have guns or not, or refusing to wear masks or stay home and all this stuff. And so that's being covered far more by MSNBC and CNN and all these networks, ABC, CBS, than the workers' strikes of people saying that companies are profiting while giving them poor wages that aren't sufficient, risking their health, not cleaning and keeping them safe from COVID. And the list goes on, right? Not giving them hazard pay for making the risk, these frontline workers that always deserve to get paid more money. And this just highlights why we need to pay anybody a fair living wage, regardless of what they do. Especially when, they just ring up groceries. Well, do you need those groceries? Because you need them then. Okay, So they're essential workers and they need to be treated fairly. And they're saying in the end of this video, so I'm jumping around a bit because I didn't want to keep stopping the video and affect the mouth lining up to the words, and also just for time. They also said that at the end of the video that these workers are being stopped from using message boards at work because they're using them to organize and to unite to get better workers' rights and talk about how the company is mistreating them, which is absurd and authoritarian and obviously needs to be known. So there's not enough coverage of the biggest mass movement of workers in the United States in 40 years. They're instead covering any kind of right-wing protest, big or small, significant or not. That's what your mainstream corporate media is doing. So, they had this great thing about Bill Gates earlier that I didn't comment on when I did pause the video, and how Bill Gates... Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation puts out this article saying hundreds of millions of people or millions of people are going to starve because of the coronavirus pandemic. And he's like, just offhand, can I think of anybody that has that kind of money lying around? And they show his wealth. And he just said, and Lee Camp tells you, well, you could solve poverty with like $30 billion a year around the world. And Bill Gates has $100 billion. Well, in other words, that foundation is just to look good while he keeps all of our money. So why doesn't he put some of that money into solving? Why don't we tax the wealthy? We don't have to rely on charity and let people die. We will take their money here and around the world in a fair and just proportion so we all do okay and have systems so nobody goes without a home, without a decent education, without food, clean air, water, and, mass transit. Free, non-polluting, or very minimally polluting, all green mass transit. Anyway, so what else do we have to talk about? Oh, he's talking about Netanyahu, who is a war criminal. He is a serious war criminal, and he is a regular criminal who's being charged by his government, but the guy who's supposed to charge him is holding off on charging him, and he was appointed by Netanyahu. And nobody's talking about it. And they're taking a big land grab, but they waited for the pandemic to hit them so people couldn't go outside and protest their breaking of international law to take more land from Palestinians. And not only that, they're blocking them from getting the supplies they need, saying they're military supplies, but supplies they need to treat coronavirus, shutting down something because the Palestinian Authority, or the PLA or whatever, the Palestinian Authority, their government, went in, which Israel doesn't recognize, went in and, tried to help a hospital to help treat their people who are living in apartheid under the Israeli government currently. And what did they do? They shut it down. They're not letting them get supplies so they could treat people. People are dying. They're trying to wipe them out. That's not being covered. That needs to be talked about. And clearly Netanyahu should be in prison for so many reasons. It's ridiculous, just like a lot of our leaders. But he got caught, and somebody, apparently enough people fought to act. And hopefully good things come of that. And a progressive, non-psychotic, right-wing, racist psychopath that Benjamin Netanyahu, war criminal, that Benjamin Netanyahu is, hopefully they replace him with somebody great. So let's see. So much to talk about. They're talking about how the health insurance companies are profiting off this and telling investors, oh, we're good, we're okay, don't worry about it. But then telling the government that they're in trouble and need money. And while they get $1.4 billion from the government, their CEO, or $1.4 million in aid, their CEO makes $1.7 million. Disgusting. Or maybe it was billion, actually. Wouldn't be surprised with the health insurance. And they go, well, obviously, this is the obvious time that Medicare for All, there's no way it could seem stupid. It seems like the right thing to do. And I love how he says, well, maybe, it makes me think, well, maybe profit isn't the right way to have a healthcare system. Maybe that's a bad idea. Maybe that's a bad system. Obviously, he's joking and being sarcastic. Of course it's a bad system. And this just highlights it even more than it was already absurdly obvious. And now everybody's aware of it and nobody's really debating it. So we need Medicare for all. Joe Biden says he'll veto Medicare for all. Donald Trump is against Medicare for all. We need to get Joe Biden to drop out and Bernie Sanders to resume his campaign. It was stolen from him anyway. And him backing down is pretty pathetic. And he needs to fight for all the workers that gave him money, donated their time, their heart, their soul, people that care about policy and what's right and ethical and efficient and what we need to do to have a good society. Bernie Sanders is the only one doing it. He did the Green New Deal. It was a serious proposal. It was well thought out with Medicare for all these like 40 some odd studies saying it saves us money, and it saves us like 68,000 lives annually as of now, as of a few months ago. So more people will die, especially with a pandemic without this. And it costs society much more money and puts us at bigger risk if we don't have healthcare. We could have stopped this spread way sooner. People that thought they might have the virus or didn't know the virus was around or felt sick could have we didn't have the tests. Our government is fucking up at an epic level. So yeah, I mean, it talking about how the Small Business Administration, how big chains like Olive Garden are getting bailed out, while mom and pop stores that or restaurants that are selling good, decent food or original food are going under and not getting the loans from the Small Business Administration, because all they're trying to do is give corporations a big payday and screw us even more and buy out and replace all the small and medium businesses. A corporation or a chain, regardless of who it's franchised or not, they're not who we need to save. We need to save actual small businesses. So the government is screwing you, and nobody's got a serious response, and nobody in government is calling us out enough. Nobody. Not Bernie Sanders, not anybody. And shame on all of them. Our government is way bought out by money, and the DNC and the RNC have a stranglehold on straying from their propaganda, what they want to say, their talking points, and their rhetoric. So this was a great video from Lee Camp. If you don't know Lee Camp, you don't know Redacted Tonight, you're really missing out. It's not always so funny, and I'm just in a certain kind of mood, so I probably laughed a little harder at certain jokes, but it's entertaining, and it's informative, and it's research-based, and they obviously have a bunch of help and a bunch of people with all kinds of expensive equipment in a studio, which is one day what I would love to have. So support punk rock politics, share this video, get the information out there. It's vitally important information, and make sure you subscribe to my channel. Please subscribe. Do not forget to subscribe so you stay updated on punk rock politics videos like this, giving you the down low. So yeah, I mean, we clearly have a serious problem. The coronavirus pandemic is exacerbating all of our crises that were already occurring, whether they be addiction, income inequality. It's just putting a further light, a lamp, a huge, big, giant light on the climate crisis, on people starving, on income inequality, on some countries having food and others not, on the need to tax the wealthy, on the need for social programs. So keep fighting the power. It's not too late to remove Joe Biden for so many reasons, besides none, including the fact that he cheated. Let's go. Bernie Sanders should resume his campaign. Let's save this country and instill real democracy, because Bernie Sanders is the only candidate that ran the DNC or RNC that truly wants to fight for democracy, so you have a better say in your life. Look into it. It's true. There's no denying it, that all the rest of them could care less and just want to steal your elections. So although it's very disappointing that he dropped out and a little, obnoxious and kind of spineless, in my opinion, and let down a lot of people. Maybe he was threatened with violence, but quite frankly, I don't care. If you're in that position of power, you fight for people. That's what you do. Martin Luther King did it. He died for what he believed in, and so did many others. John Lennon, a bunch of others. So stay tuned to Punk Rock Politics. Make sure to subscribe. Go to patreon.com/punkrockpolitics and become a patron today. The lowest membership starts at just $1. Check out all the different perks you get at the different tiers of membership, and become a patron and support punk rock politics. Help us grow. Thank you very much.